And good afternoon and good morning to some of you. We're going to start the first part of this talking about parking garage design with precast prestressed concrete for more general concepts and coverage for precast parking garages. The objectives of today's presentation include providing understanding of the functional considerations of prestressed concrete parking garages. We're going to look at parking garage occupancy, site configuration considerations, vertical communications, and something on fire ratings. We will try to provide an understanding of the structural system design for precast prestressed concrete parking structures from a general standpoint: gravity load framing, vertical elements, and diaphragm considerations. Part 2 of the webinar that will be held in a couple of days actually gets into this area in a much greater depth, but at least we will cover the general considerations today so that we set up with a fairly complete review or an overview of precast parking garages. Finally, we will look at design issues and solutions from lessons learned in precast parking garages, including warping floors, floor connections and joints, some other connection considerations, volume change effects, and construction issues. Then we will do a little bit of covering of some of the components that are used in precast prestressed concrete parking garages for double T's, inverted T-beam, spandrel beams, flat slabs and stairs, columns and walls. All of this kind of is an overview to be able to, in one session, put together the basic considerations for precast parking garages. Parking garages are classified in IBC in Section 406 under motor vehicle related occupancies. They are low hazard storage structures, so before we get into the specialty of parking, we are storage S2. There are sections for public parking garages that are covered in Chapter 4, which covers the special considerations of structural types. Public garages must comply with the provisions of Section 406.2 and 406.4. They're classified as either open parking garage or enclosed parking garages. And the section in IBC that covers open parking garages is covered in Section 406.5. The enclosed parking garages comply with additional requirements in 406.6. And then there are parts of Section 510 for special provisions for parking garages. Open parking garages in 406.5.1 require that the garages be either type 1, type 2, or type 4 construction and meet the design requirements of Chapter 16, which are structural requirements. There are additional notes for vehicle barrier requirements in Section 406.4.2. Open parking garages are open for ventilation, and 406.5.2 covers the ventilation purposes, essentially saying 20% open of the perimeter at each tier. The aggregate length of openings considered to be providing natural ventilation not less than 40% of the perimeter of a tier. And interior walls shall be not less than 20% open with uniformly distributed openings. Openings are not required to be distributed over 40% of the building perimeter, where the required openings are uniformly distributed over two opposite sides of the building. This is an idea of creating cross ventilation and not requiring the total air perimeter if the ventilation through the structure is end to end or side to side. Where there are openings below grade, it is required to provide natural ventilation with the outside horizontal clear space not less than 1.5 times the depth of the opening. So it gives us an idea that if we have a light well, it has to be wide enough to actually function for ventilation. Section 406.5.3 addresses and points to provisions for mixed uses. Not every parking garage is only for parking. So the mixed use section are cited in the slide to go and check for specific requirements for the specific applications.